Stop, cart, and ask directions is the first move in Liuhebafa, and it can be a really nice foundation exercise that's done as a Qigong pattern. You can actually do it on both sides, even though we only do it on one side in the set. I want to briefly look at the move, but really what I want to talk about is the goals. So let's start with just observing it. So I'm going to have my right hand on top, hands separate, fully open, hands come together. One more time. Separate. Open. Hands come together. So to understand the goals, let's briefly talk about the anatomy. The goals of this is really to move and mobilize the lower rib cage. And there's a lot of movement potential in this lower rib cage. If I look at my ribs, my bottom two ribs are called floating ribs. They attach to the spine, but they don't attach anywhere else to bone. So they're floating. They just attach to the spine and there are no other attachments. Ribs 8, 9, and 10 are called false ribs. They don't directly attach to the sternum, but they all collectively merge with a big piece of cartilage and eventually indirectly attach to the sternum, whereas all the other ribs go from the spine right to the sternum. So that upper rib cage has less movement potential than the lower rib cage. The lower rib cage can open and compress and turn, and a lot of movement can occur in that region, which is an important part of our turning and movement in day-to-day life. When we do move that area, we're engaging the abdominals, but we're also moving and turning and twisting the diaphragm, and we're turning and twisting and moving the organs such as the liver, the spleen, the stomach. So that's really necessary movement to keep healthy digestion and to be able to massage the organs, move and mobilize the diaphragm, take a good full breath, really a whole ton of things. So let's look at the move again now with that in mind, because the movement's not about the hands. The movement is about moving the rib cage, opening that area, fully opening, closing, fully closing, opening, fully opening, starting to close, fully closing. So it's a rib cage movement. It's hard to control that area, so it's okay to let the hands guide it, but you want to reach in a way that's starting to pull and move the rib cage over time as you get more control. You want the rib cage movement to drive the hands. So do what you can do, but it's really about understanding that. So when I do this again, notice one thing is that I'm not turning the hips, because it's not a hip turning. Then everything stays stationary above, or at least it potentially might. So I want to keep the hip stationary, and I want to move the rib cage. So right hand on top, fingers facing opposite directions. Separate the hands, open the rib cage. Fully open the rib cage. The rib cage starts to close. Hand comes up the center line. Starts to turn me a little bit back to that original side. I can fully turn and open. Fully open as I come to the center. Turn, starting to close. Fully close. Starting to open and turn. Continue. Center. Close. Fully closing. Let's look one more time. Open. Expand. Turn to the center, fully expand. Close. And compress. This is the way we do it in the form of Liuhebafa that I do, but in this Qigong pattern we can do it on both sides to be balanced. My left hand will be out front. I'll turn the other direction. If you do this form, doing it this way at first is a little challenging because you're not used to it, but it's the same. So I'll do the same pattern, reaching my other hand out, letting that turn my body, Turn forward, expand, compress. And you can do it as many times as you want to both sides.